All right, John, welcome to the Golf Coach Podcast, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. When you reached out, I was like, yeah, for sure.
Oh man, I appreciate you coming on. It's really nice. I've seen some of the stuff you've been putting out there, and I was like, it'd be cool to kind of meet John. Obviously, we all talk on social media, us coaches. Not that I've been spending much time on social media lately, but I've always seen the stuff you got going on, and I love that a little bit of stuff that I've seen how you've moved away, and I was kind of excited. And I like the way that you present your information. So I was like, let's get John on. Let's have a bit of a chat. So,
Yeah.
John, for the listeners out there, where are you, man?
I'm in Orlando, Florida currently, and I'm the director of instruction at Celebration Golf Club.
Celebration Golf Club. Do you know where the name Celebration came from?
You know what? If you look at the town names through Florida, you're going to find some weird names, and Celebration is like kind of random, but that's the town name, and it was originally built with Disney. We're really close to Disney property, and the town was kind of built for like Disney executives. So there's these $1 million homes with these what they call mother-in-law suites attached to them, you know?
Yes.
And that's kind of the town. It's like Perfectville, USA.
Oh wow, that's
very interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know the place was actually called Celebration, right next to Disney, right? That's unreal. So
Right.
You haven't been there long, right? What have you been up to lately? What's been going on? You've been spending a bit of time in Korea, right?
Yeah, so for the past 2 years, I was in South Korea, right in Seoul, in the city. And to say that was a life-changing experience would be, underrated. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And for me, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, small town, never lived in a city in general. Lived just outside of the city, went to college in Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama. So that's like almost as rural as it gets, being down like in the deep South like that. And then, lived in Orlando. So going to Seoul, one of the biggest cities in the world, was just like, it was mind blowing. I never seen that many people. I've never been in people traffic.
People
like
traffic.
And then there's people traffic. I'm like, how is there like just from people walking? Like, wow. It was crazy.
That's I got a student of mine, Josh, who'll be listening to this. He lives in South Korea. He's from the UK. He's always found it quite challenging to get rounds of golf in. Is it difficult to get a round of golf in over there?
Yeah, it's just that not most. All of the golf courses. There's no golf courses in the city. It's like illegal. The land is too small, so like there's no way they're going to allocate, enough land for a golf course in the city when people are struggling for housing and stuff. So all of the golf courses are anywhere from like an hour to 2.5 hours away. And so like, Seoul is here, and then you have to drive on the outskirts, and you drive up the side of the mountain, and then the golf courses are typically like on the side of the mountain, and they're like overlooking down into the city. Yeah. So it's a long journey out there. 1, 2, there's a lot of traffic depending on the time of day you come and go. And then 3, the experience itself is meant to be like an all day kind of experience. So it's a whole day. You just have to allocate a day to it. So that many people don't go golfing that often because of those things.
And what took you to Korea?
My wife is Korean. I met her here in Florida. She's a golfer also. And we dated for 7 years before we got married. And she was always telling me about Korea. And she was slowly introducing me to the food, to the culture. And at some point, I always promised her I would go. And then that time happened. And she was like, said you were going to come, and I was like, all right, I did say it. I'm a man of my word. I'll be there.
Let's do it.
So started the plan. I gave myself a year to kind of save up some money and get ready to go over there, and we went through with it.
That's awesome. And you both came back. Tell me your what's your go-to food with Korean? We in Australia here. We have like a takeaway called like Korean barbecue. Is that a thing? Like, is that a big thing, or is that just?
Yeah, so it was funny. We get introduced to it as Korean barbecue, but obviously there they don't call it Korean barbecue. So that was something that I like wanted to talk about. It's like, it's not called Korean barbecue. Like, we're in Korea. It's like, obviously. A lot of barbecue places. A lot of places
Yeah.
specialize in either beef or pork, which I thought was really
Yeah.
interesting. There's not too many places that sell like many different meats. A lot of places, since there's so much competition, people are like, no, we
Mm.
do pork, and we're like, we specialize in pork. So if you're craving pork, you come to us, or if you're craving
Ah.
chicken or beef, you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
yeah,
what's the
there's a
meat?
lot
Where do they source? Where do they source their meat from? Is it
of.
farms in South Korea?
I know they get some beef from like the UK. They have there's a small island just south of Korea called Jeju, and they get a lot of their pork from there. Like they have like famous pork there, and
Okay.
so there's a lot of farming and stuff going on, and they have their own agriculture and stuff too.
Ah, cool. And just
Mhm.
lastly, on the Korea thing, right? I love listening to people who I love traveling, right? I've got a very, very itchy foot. But did you, was there any language barrier in your coaching over there? Or did you teach a lot of those people that they could speak English? Or how did they
Yeah,
go?
so I definitely had a niche market of people who, let's say, went to middle school in the US, or like, they
Yeah.
work internationally, or like something like they have a base of English. So I would say that
Yeah.
90% of my customers felt comfortable to speak English. And, I wasn't
Oh,
charging like a
cool.
cheap price either. So people didn't want to, just come in and pay for a lesson they couldn't understand. So most of my clients had
Yes.
an English background. Although I
Oh,
did
that's cool.
teach a handful of students that we did not communicate very well, but doing a golf lesson, and even in the Korean language, all of the golf terms are like Konglish, like Korean English. So, like club path is like club path. So
Oh,
it
okay.
kind of worked out like not too bad. I couldn't talk theory, but I could fix somebody's swing just by pointing at the video and do this, don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself when you're talking to someone in a different language, like you start talking in their accent too when you're trying to say, like, like my wife picks up on it all the time. Like when we just got back from Indonesia, and I'll talk to someone in English, but the way that they would say it, and it would just be so much easier if I just spoke my normal way and they would understand me better. You know what I mean? It's
Probably.
like when you go order food at a
Yeah.
restaurant and you start talking, it just feels like I walk
You
away.
want to be
I know
relative. Yeah.
I know I do it. I'm like, you're such an idiot, Toby. All right, let's talk golf
Yeah, I
anyway.
don't know
Let's talk
about
golf. So
anything.
what
Okay.
I do with all my guests, and I was talking to you before the podcast, right, is that I like to ask some topics that you want to talk about, and particularly if I've got got some specialists coming up, like I've got like Mark Bull coming up. We're going to talk obviously biomechanics and
Mhm.
3D. I might
Oh yeah.
have a mind coach or someone talk about mind stuff. When I get golf coaches on, I'm like, we could talk for days and days and days about trail arm, right? So I like to talk about, I like to kind of ask the coaches what they want to talk about. You come to me with some pretty cool topics, right? And I like the way you're kind of thinking. It wasn't just as simple. I reckon it was, you're a bit of a teacher's pet when it comes to me asking you the questions. So I appreciate what you did. So
Yep.
I asked you for some topics to talk about, right? I'm going to run through them all today, but one here that you bring up, right? You talk to me about people chasing consistency are looking in all the wrong places. Also, have a distorted a vision of what consistency looks like. Now,
Mhm.
I think that's fantastic. Where were you wanting to start with that, and what were you thinking when you were talking about that?
So, I teach a lot of lessons. I get a lot of people to come in for one-off lessons. And it just, so many people come in and they're just like, I just want to be more consistent. And so when I ask them, like, what are you doing to be more consistent, or, how does that look for you? They say like, well, I just think that once I get my swing, like, in that position and I get that there, then like I'll be consistent. And I just know that that's not exactly the case. Like, the best swing does not make you consistent. And I believe that consistency comes from like all the things that you can control. So your pre-shot routine, what's going through your mind, like the decisions you're making before you even start to swing a club. There is no consistent swing. And so
Mm,
I think that, like I said, the distorted version is they see on tour, all the highlight shots that they're showing, highlight after highlight, and people are just hitting all these greens and everything. And it's like, well, if you watch a tour player for 18 holes, you'll realize that they're not that consistent, especially if they're not playing well. Like, yeah, of course, if Scotty is on, he's hitting like every green. But when you watch somebody who like barely makes the cut, they're going to be missing greens. They'll miss hit shots. They hit it, this way or that way. So, and they have, arguably some of the best swings. Obviously, they're the best players in the world. So, like, you finding your club in a slot is not exactly going to make you that consistent. It's going to be making the right decisions, picking the right clubs, attempting to do the right things and do the same things kind of over and over again. So I tell people to look for consistency, like in their routine and in their decision making before necessarily like their swing. It's not gonna be there because I tried.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I think I understand what you're saying. Definitely, I think the listeners will understand that as well. Is that when we potentially talk about consistency, I think people might be a little bit too narrow-minded in it as well. So let's just talk about like just hitting a standard 5-iron. I think when you talk about decision making there, maybe having a really good understanding of your dispersion and shot pattern that will help you with your result be more content, because you might make a better decision that if it's not as well struck shot, that it's going to be in a consistent area because you understand the dispersion, right? So that's a kind of really good way of looking at it. But I think one way, what you mentioned there as well, John, about the tour players, missing shots and all this, and I think one thing that people, it's difficult to be consistent when you don't actually hit the same shot.
Yeah.
So, like, no shot's the same, is it? When you think about it.
I mean, like, people, I love doing on-course, like, lessons, too. So I love taking people out to the golf course, and I'm very thankful for the place that I teach at to have access to just be like, for 25, 30 minutes into a lesson and they're hitting it good, I'm like, all right, let's just jump on the cart, go squeeze into a hole somewhere and, like, see it on the course. And whenever I see them out there, they won't realize the ball's like above their feet or below their feet. And I mean, obviously, yeah, if you're on the side of a hill, like, you're going to know. But I mean, like, the small subtleties, even in the fairway, and like how that's going to affect your shot. So, yeah, they're not playing for that. They don't see it. They don't feel it. And, all of a sudden they're on the downslope. They're not trying. They haven't made any adjustments for the ball being on the downslope. And then they chunk it. And they're like, see, my swing. It's all like, I just, I came over the top again. I'm like, no, you didn't even know you were on a downslope, did you? Like, you didn't adjust the ball position or like attempt to do anything. So that's where, those pieces like that, like, you can't just blame your swing every time you hit a bad shot. There's so much more to this game.
So what you're saying there is that the golfer could be more consistent if they actually did their data collection, prior to the shot being better in regards to the situation of the lie, the pin position, can help them find a consistent area where the ball is going to land and not try to have the consistent swing, but more or less go about it that way there. Yeah, I liken that. And I was even talking to a student today about this, John, a new student, and we're talking about his strategies moving forward. He's an online student, about what we're going to do. And he said, Toby, I can get to the golf. Like, he's got a bit of technical work that we need to get done. And he's got some, I guess, some things we really need to work through this golf swing, right? Like, he's got the shanks, he's low on confidence in the golf course. He's really not in a great place currently, right? He's in a technical phase of his golf training that's needed to be done. And he goes, Toby, I won't be able to, I might be able to get, play 9 holes, a couple of afternoons a week. And I said to him, you know what? Currently right now, I don't need you to, because I want you to do a bit of technical work currently right now. Like, we want doing some technical work, trying to get you comfortable in your net at home. You're probably not even going to go hit 1 7-iron out of that whole 9 holes. You know what I mean? So to kind of at least getting comfortable with anything we're working on. I said, I'd rather you actually go to a fairway and hit 10 7-irons and go home. Yeah. Just at that current time where he's at, because
I understand that.
he's never going to be able to recreate exactly what we're working on, because he's going to hit a driver for the first. He's probably going to slice it into the trees and he's going to chip it out, and then he's going to do this. I thought, we're not going to get anywhere. So it was interesting. Now you kind of talk about that, because this conversation I just had this afternoon. But what strategies can someone put into place, right? So someone's listening to this, or the golf coach or whatever, and us as golf coaches, I say to everyone, the biggest word I can spell is consistency, is because everyone talks about it all day long. That's what I want, right? Like every single golf lesson, right?
Yeah.
And I would generally start leaning them towards the word more predictable. But I like how you're thinking a little bit deeper there from a golf playing perspective. What strategies should people put in place to be more consistent, throughout their game?
So, like I said, when I'm on course with a client and they're looking for more consistency, I try to make them, how I touched on it briefly, like a little bit more aware of just the situation that they have at hand and kind of how to play these situations a little bit more. So, like I said, the first thing I always tell them is like, when you get to your ball, like assess the lie. What do you have? Is it sitting on top of the fairway? Is it fine? Then, okay, you could just go through your normal, you could pick your shot shape, find the distance. Is it on a downslope above your feet? Is it sitting down in the grass? Is it buried in the rough? And like this will be the first starting point where your original plan might deviate and you need to try something else in order to get a more desirable result. So I always make them aware of the lie first. How's the ball sitting? Yeah. Is it on the flat slope? And then what do you do from there? And I'll just say you build your game plan from there. Okay, it's on the down slope. So we're not going to try to hit this higher because you're going to chunk it. If you try to lift it in the air, it's going to come in lower. It's coming in lower. What do you do from there? Is there a way for the ball to roll up onto the green, or is there a bunker short? And so then I kind of walk them through these questions and kind of how to find this process of like, not fighting. I always say, don't fight against the earth. It, usually always wins. So like, I like to play the slope and understand that the ball is going to curve from right to left when it's above your feet, all those little things there, and kind of build that plan backwards. So that's always what I try to teach them. And we go over that like through every shot. So like I said, I like taking people on the course to help them through these different situations so they understand with the wind.
Yeah, and what I hear you saying there, right, is improving people's golf IQ, essentially, right?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, are caught up in understanding, us golf coaches now are having students come to us with language that golf coaches are using a lot of the time, right? And language that, I wouldn't be expecting people to understand, 15 handicappers using some terminology. But then what you're probably saying is, and what I'm hearing you say is, I could probably take them out to a downslope and they wouldn't know what to do.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but they can talk to me about the anatomy and the mechanics
of everything. Yeah. So what are you doing in this fairway bunker when the ball's above your feet? Like, what are you going to do here?
Interesting. I like that. I like that as well. So what you're saying, I like that. We could probably close on that and say something along the lines of improve your golf IQ, not your swing IQ. Right?
Yes. I mean, it just depends on what your goals are. And I think that the golf swing itself is a part of the game and is not the biggest part. Obviously there's different levels and depends on where you are in your development. As you were saying, like with your student, like, yes, you have to go through some technical things. You need to get your swing in a place where it can be somewhat repeatable. Like if you do one swing that's good and then the next one's way over the top, like, we can't have that. So like you need to put that work in to get there. But to a certain extent, if you're trying to compete or shoot lower scores, there are many different windows or, avenues to explore that are going to help you drop a couple strokes, whether it's mental performance, nutrition is even one, because I get people all the time who are just like, I played well, and then hole 13, I always crumble in the middle end of the round, at the 11, 12, 13, I went double, triple or something. I'm like, well, what'd you eat? What did I eat? I didn't eat anything, or I had McDonald's for breakfast and then I didn't have any snacks. So I'm like, well, you're starving your body, and now you got cloudy judgment, you're making bad decisions. So I think there's just a lot more places that you can find ways to drop your score than just your swing. Your
golf coaching, and I kind of got this from having the conversation with you prior to us when I met you, prior to recording the podcast. Has your golf coaching, been a little this kind of way your whole career, not being so, I'm going to use the term technical based, or, building ideal golf swings. Have you always been this way in your coaching, or have you kind of gone through that technical phase and now you're moving into this phase?
Yeah.
You've always been this way?
No, it's always been deeper inside. It's something like when I'm talking this way, this is my experience in the game. I've been playing competitively since I was 8, in junior tournaments. So I've got the basement full of trophies and yada, yada. So, I've played a lot of competitive golf, and towards the end of my career, I really started to document a lot more of all of my experiences. I would journal before and after my events, and it really helped me understand a lot more of like the small nuances that might make me play better or, not play as well. And then I also worked in junior golf academies for 5 years. And in that academy world, they have the different pockets of like physical, golf coaching, mental performance, like life coaching even. And so I got a chance to kind of see, basically it costs like $100,000 a year to go there. Like what, if you got the most money, how would they build, the most idealistic program? And it had all of those, facets to it. So I thought that was a way that you should always kind of be able to approach everything. So I went through the technical phase. I tried to help a lot of people technically. And I would say, especially in Korea also, like when I told you I was trying to fit in a little bit more. So I spent a lot more time studying and understanding the technical pieces a little bit more. But I just, as I got older, a little bit more experienced and in coaching, this side of me kind of just kept coming out. And I would always like speak it, but let's say somebody bought a 5-pack lesson, maybe by lesson like 4 or 5, this part would start to come out, where I'm just talking a little bit deeper into it. But yeah, now it's a little bit more on the forefront. I just believe in it so much, and I know it can help people. So just get right to it.
All right. Tell me then, I'm going to run into these 2 topics here. Talk to me, explain to me the difference between performance and block practice.
Love it. So block practice, both essential. You both need them for your development, and it depends on, where you are in your development. Block practice is essential for building that pattern. Let's say, again, just the example of, you're trying to shallow it, drop it in the slot. You used to be over the top. It's good to go through block practice, get as much of that feel in, and concentrate on that one movement. The result doesn't really matter that much. It's more like in what you're doing. It's an internal kind of feeling that you're working on. And it can help build the confidence that you're consistent whenever you're hitting the same shot over and like doing the same pattern over and over again. Performance practice is a lot more variety involved in a practice. So you're changing targets a little bit more. You're going through your routine. You're changing clubs. So it's essentially the way that you would play golf, a little bit more time in between. And like each shot is a little bit more serious. And performance practice just transfers to the golf course so much better than block practice. So I always tell people to spend like the last 10 minutes, just go through your routine, walk into the ball, set up, aim at the target, and then like try to hit a shot there instead of just, not paying attention and just ripping shots. Because, there's a epidemic of range players out there who can just stripe it on the range and, stripe it in the studio. And then, you go to the first hole and the environment changes around you. And so does your feel and your awareness of what you're able to do. So like you have to have a certain understanding of how to do that.
And I understand. Why do you think that a lot of golfers out there are resistant to performance-based training over the block practice? Like, I'm at the driving range, a couple of days a week teaching in person at Linkshell Cove, and I very rarely see someone, you watch people, right? You see people, everyone's just banging balls after each other, right? Yeah. Why do you think we're resistant to it? Do you think it's an education issue? Do you think it's a patience thing? Do you think it's just not that fun? Like,
I think it's the last two. I think it's a little bit of patience, and it's not that fun until you experience the benefit of it. And I've got plenty of clients now who I've preached it to and tried to like get them sold in on it. And then they do it, and now they're just like, yeah, it's definitely a part of what I do now. So
Yeah.
like they have to experience it to really understand like what that means, to feel confident over the ball in a different type of way they've probably never experienced before.
And
after going through that
when
ball.
I've taught, when I've done like performance work with, I would say that, or even so all my online students have like a practice plan, right? That they should, well, they have the opportunity to put a practice plan together. It's up to them to do it. I send them the PDF file and the plan, but which is full of performance stuff, which is measurable stuff as well, to be honest. It's measurable performance stuff. But the interesting thing is that even in my in-person coaching, I just do minimum 1 hour sessions. And I'll say to everyone that I want to have everything packaged up by the 45th minute, right? And then the last 15 minutes is just them working through everything we've done, right? I'm not trying to implement any new strategies. I don't want to be chasing my tail with 10 minutes to go, right?
Yeah.
And I might feel comfortable enough to start doing some performance work with this player and just testing it out on the quad and checking the numbers. But it's funny that what I find is, okay, I go through your routine, hit your shot. And it might work for 3 in a row. And then they might hit a poor one and automatically drag one back out. They go, hey.
Yeah. Right away. Yeah.
Every time.
You know what? Another point is that performance practice is just harder. So like, again, what they think is giving them confidence of seeing the same shot over and over again is kind of like a fake confidence because, again, you're not paying attention to the environment. Like it's a protected kind of bubble shot. When you go through performance practice and you're changing targets and changing clubs, like you're gonna hit bad shots. So it feels like you're not getting better. But the point is that the variety and like kind of being able to assess and like go through this process, like you become comfortable in the process. So even if you don't hit it good on the range, you're going to hit the ball and perform a lot better on the course because you have an idea like what's happening.
Yeah,
Even if it's like a bunt fade, like or toe draw or something, like you don't have to like fix that right away. Honestly, it's probably too late to fix that. You're going to go out to the course with that swing anyways. So like if you know it and you're going through that process and you're just kind of then like, you feel a level of comfort. Like it's nothing new. But if you go through that drill and you're working on that perfect swing and you're striping it in the center of the face, and then you go out onto the golf course and then the first time you go to hit a ball on the tee, you go through a full routine, like your process is different. Your mind's in a different space. There's water left, wind's blowing, like they're not paying attention to any of that. So it all feels different. You get nervous, make a short, quick swing and, snap hook it. So,
mate, at my golf course, the driving range, right? If you're doing technical block 7-iron practice and then going straight to the range, straight to the course, it could not be a worse first hole for you because you've got a hit driver up near the clubhouse, right? Up near the putting green. Everyone's watching. You're having a cup of coffee. You're watching because we've got a new cafe restaurant. And if you're lucky enough to get it on the fairway, miss the water on the left, it's undulated the whole way. It's like this, up and down. It's a links course, up and down, up and down. I've never in my life had a flat lie on the first hole, like never in my life. So then all of a sudden you've got to hit this. I'm generally hitting like if it's into the breeze, like a bunt iron down there somewhere because it's down slope or up slope. It's whatever it is. And then you got like a little tricky little, 3/4 wedge into a sloping green. Like it's just nothing like hitting a 7-iron block off the
right away. Right? 3 shots in a row. It's like nothing you could experience on the range.
Not even, close. It's really interesting. All right, so let's talk about moving into swing changes, right? And how do you, how do you go about that? Obviously, it's case by case, right? But moving on from the practice, it kind of flows into this. Mm-hmm. Where do you want to go with it? Where do you want to start?
I would say as far as making swing changes, for me, when somebody comes in and, there's some obvious things that need to be worked on in their swing. And, I talk a lot about all the other pieces of golf, but I also really love the mechanics and a lot of people come to me specifically for swing changes. So, when I first see a swing, I'm always trying to break it down. I just keep asking why until I feel like I've kind of hit that root cause of like what's going on. And I feel like that's the best way. If I see somebody with a chicken wing, left arm coming through, it's like, why? I think that all of the non ideal movements in a swing are typically happening for a reason, whether it's a physical limitation
Yeah.
or it's to compensate for some other type of movement, like a lack of space or something. And
Yeah.
so I keep asking why. Why did a chicken wing? Oh, well, because it was a little over the top. He ran out of space. Why is it over the top? Oh, well, at the top of the backswing, there wasn't enough depth. You know what I mean? I just kind of
Yeah.
keep
I
going
get you.
back, and then it might even go all the way down to like grip, posture, alignment. It usually comes
Yeah.
into some fundamentals. And then that's what I try to get them is like find their first priority. Okay, this is your number one priority. If you don't handle this one problem, then the chain of events is always going to happen and you're going to have your old swing right back. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times it starts, like I said, with alignment or grip. And I try to give them something that, especially for when they play, like something to concentrate on that's a little bit smaller and something that,
Yeah.
like an easier process goal for them to handle. So yeah,
And
once we find
so
that,
when
then good.
so when they're going through the swing changes, right, or when you've implemented a swing change with a student,
Mhm.
are you like how much do you think they should be putting into block practice until they start going to performance practice? Do you have like a certain method or a certain way that you go about it, or a formula, or is it just case by case?
No, I would say that I try to get people, I always tell people to compartmentalize their game a little bit more. So I like to treat the swing, golf swing, almost kind of separately. So I like mirror work. I like a lot of practice swings. Non-ball
Yeah.
repetitions I think are really good to, especially like the first beginning stages of like understanding a new
Yeah.
movement. And
Yeah.
so most people, might think they're doing it, but then they're not. So they need to get as many like good repetitions in as possible. So I'm all about taking control of that practice, stop and goes, pump drills, mirror work. Like I want them to be able to do the move that we're looking for as good as possible and as
Yeah.
perfect as they can for as many times as possible. And if you're just hitting
Yeah.
regular balls and like making full swings, it's usually not the right swing.
Yeah.
So there's a period of like drilling and mirror work that they have to go through to really like let that get in, yeah, working
Yeah, I
better.
like it. I like it. Well, an example I will use is, what I will say with the student a lot of the time is, just take as much speed off as possible until it's where we want it. And then
Yeah.
where it is where we want it, we'll start loading up more speed, essentially.
Hmm.
Like I think it's a big strategy I use with drivers. When people are struggling with drivers, they just go flat chat. And I've got saved purposely on my skillers file probably half a dozen players hitting tour players hitting a driver about 120 yards, like chipping it,
Hmm.
maybe 150 yards, just on purpose, just to show them that you don't have to swing at 125 mile an hour when you're making a
Yeah.
swing change. You can still just
Yeah.
chip it out there. So
Yeah.
that's
It's
interesting. So
hard to learn a new sensation to hit a ball. Like when you've been
mm,
doing the same swing for years and you're used to this certain, like sequence of events that happens when you go to hit a golf ball, like to change that feels really weird. And so you have to slow down and like, yeah, give
yeah.
yourself some time to be able to like understand like, oh, I can hit the ball from the inside.
So so when they can perform it without a golf ball, right, and you're doing it, do you go straight into like an off-speed short chip shot, or how, do you, and then you kind of implement it? Because when I had Alex Riggs on, about a year and a bit ago, Riggs, a good friend of mine, he had it pretty blueprinted out. Like, not I don't, but he would be
Mhm.
like, okay, this has got to be this much distance. This is this much distance. This is this much distance, and he actually knew before what it was going to be. Do you,
Mhm.
do you have a certain strategy, or you just kind of play it ear by ear, or
I would say play it by ear. I definitely
yeah,
just kind of try to pay attention and see where they are. I want them
yeah,
to have a good experience when they're in the hour with me.
yeah,
So if somebody is advancing quick, or I can kind of see it on their face, where they're like, okay, this is boring. Like I'm not going to sit here and chip 7 irons, for the rest of the lesson. I wouldn't want
Yeah.
them to go through that either. Like, yeah, you might need it, but I'm like, all right, let's ramp it. I'll kind of like test it and then I'll try to advance them as quick as I can, basically.
Yeah.
And, but without the expense of them, understanding or getting the proper movement.
I like it. Hey,
Yeah.
tell me, yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. And, I think for the person listening as well, is it's try not to be too disheartened when you're making swing change, because I must say this, I don't know, 10 times a week. I'll say I make my best golf swing at home without a golf ball. And then
Yep.
I make my next best golf swing at home into my screen without my quad turned on. Then I make
Mhm.
my next best golf swing with the quad turned on. And it
Mhm.
gets so bad, it gets worse and worse and worse until the most highest stakes are put on.
Yep.
And it's just what happens. It's just what happens. Technically, it will never look how you thought. It's just we have a little bit of reactive state. We move back, slip into our old habits, and we go back to
Yep.
what's comfortable. So,
Yes.
my good friend Stevie G said he reckons it takes 30% of how long you've been. He made this up on the spot. I've been running with it. 30% of how long you've been playing golf for to change it, till it becomes a
Ooh,
part of the
I like that.
subconscious.
I'm gonna have to keep that one. I like that a lot.
He's going to send me a
30%.
text after he listens to this, but it's what he said, and
Yeah.
and I think it's really good. And if you're making a swing change, I think one of the challenges that I have as an online coach is I'll get the golf swing the student sends me from the backyard or on the driving
Mhm.
range,
Mhm.
and then they tell me that they sliced it on the weekend playing on the golf
Mhm.
course. I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
I would be interested to see that golf swing because this one in the net's not slicing.
Yeah.
So that's it's an interesting one to
That
take note of.
to bring up that point, I can't tell you how many times so when you're practicing on a mat or in basically, yeah, mat, indoor, wherever, we have spatial awareness. You can square yourself up to the target so much
Mm,
easier when you're on a mat or just like doing block practice. And
yeah,
then,
I agree.
yeah, and then they go out to the course. The tee box is slightly aiming this way. Your target is over
Mm,
there. And like
mm,
so many people just square up to the tee box. And the people who are setting the tee markers are the maintenance crew. So like they
yeah,
don't care that it's aiming where it needs to go. And like it's
yeah,
almost every hole, the tee box is not aiming you where you need to go. Unless there's some courses that I love that do that, but for the most part,
yeah.
that's not what they're dealing with. So like the
Mm,
alignment is so bad usually. And then,
mm,
they're like, oh, I don't know why I was on the range, I was hitting perfect draw, but then you aim 15 yards right at your target and then you swing over the top and hit a pull cut or like a big
mm,
slice, and I don't know what happened. It's like
yeah.
the alignment, man.
Dude, I get it, man. Dude, I get it. Even my teaching, Matt, like it's so hard at my course when I teach to not aim straight. Like it's hard to not because I've got so many
Yeah.
things around me. I've got the nets on the outside of the teaching bay. I've got the poles outside, which you hit between. I got my mat on the ground, and I hate it when it gets off center, so I center it each time, and
Yeah.
it's impossible to not aim straight. No, I completely
Yeah.
get it, and I aim right myself all the time. Hey, let's move into some short game stuff, right?
Mhm.
Pitching here, right? You've got into a little bit of a topic area which I love. I love talking about right here. Steep versus shallow. Are you
Mhm.
in a camp, or do you want to talk about it, or what's going
No,
on?
no. I mean, I'm a observer. I'm a both sides of the coin kind of guy. It's been
So
such a
tell me how you are both sides of pitching. Like, shallow versus steep. It's obviously been a big topic area of late. The
Mhm.
last couple of years, I guess we could say. I'll be
Mhm.
honest. I've learnt a lot myself over what's been coming out. Um, but yeah, where do you kind of stand with shallow, steep? What's going on?
I think that I think each situation kind of has each topic has an ideal situation. So like the steeper ones, I love for myself. I love pinching that ball, hitting down on it whenever the soil is hard and firm. So like I guess it kind of depends on where you are, like where your home course is and everything. So when it's firmer and the grass is kind of thin, like being a little bit steeper where you can really pinch that ball, like those are the spinniest lies, when there's not much grass underneath you and the ground is firm, like that's when you can get the most backspin. But whenever it's a little bit softer, like here in Florida, we get Bermuda grass, it's muddy, it rains all the time, it's a little soggier. Your wedges naturally shouldn't have as much bounce if you live in Florida versus, let's say like in Arizona, or I don't know what it's like where you are. Is it firm?
It varies, dude. It varies. But my golf course, it's it just varies. It's weather dependent, really. If it's raining, it's quite soft, and if it's not, it's like we're on a side of a hill, kind of goes down in the valleys, so it can change as well. But I get you.
I think each situation has it a little bit, ideal way. In general, I would say most of the people that I'm teaching, and for myself, I like a shallower approach. I like it. I enjoy using the bounce just a little bit more. I never found it that hard to hit the ball whenever I'm using the bounce and coming in a little bit more shallow. I think there's just a little bit more forgiveness. Seems like that's the way the wedge was partially designed to be used. Coming in steep, I think it works good for some people. I think in general, for masses, I just think that using the bounce or being shallower is going to work out probably more often for the player than the steeper approach.
So when you're saying using the bounce, are you bottoming out before the ball, or
bottoming out at the ball? If it does happen before the ball, then you can get away with it. Is kind of the point. Yeah. I mean, you want clean contact. I want you to be able to pinch it good. But if it does happen to bottom out before it, then it'll just slide underneath and you'll be fine.
So what's your advice to someone who's been, if you're a golf nerd, which most of you guys are who are listening to this, right? Like, if you're listening to the Golf Coach podcast, you're a golf nerd, because we don't generally tread on topics lightly. It gets quite deep. But these people who are listening to this, right, who aren't coaches, have been seeing the stuff on Instagram, right? About, people have been having some really great discussions about steep versus shallow, and the steep guys are pretty vocal. And what's your advice for the golfer listening? Do you think they should go out and test it themselves, do some performance practice, and test which one works better?
It's test it. I mean, I don't like to take people's word for it. I like to experience it myself and come up with my own opinion, and I think that's the best way to go about it. And if you just, you can't just go, you listen to all the steep stuff and then you just do steep and you never try to understand how to use the bounce. And ultimately, if you want to be a great player, I think it's great to have options. And if you understand how to do both, then you could pick which one is your favorite. Just like how that's what I did. I tried it. I understand exactly what to do to make it steeper. I got a TrackMan. I've tested it, been 10 down, I can get that feel. And then, doing it the other way, being a little bit more shallow. And like I said, for me and for the conditions that I'm dealing with here, the shallow one worked out a little bit better. So go out and try. And I think you might be shocked.
Your standard chip shot, have you checked on TrackMan? What is it? What are you down?
It was 6 degrees down.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
so
I'm quite steep. I'm quite steep and I still use the bounce, because I kind of get my hands up and out of there. So, it's an interesting topic area. I've just had students of mine who have come to me, who have been following it and are just trying to whack down crazy on it, right? And it's just not working for them. But I've also had other students. I've also had other students who have had some real chipping issues, right? And I guess I'm going to use the term yips, but you might see the golfer who, getting through the hitting area and some weird stuff's going on, like the knees are going down, or the club's jumping back up really quickly, or the left arm's breaking down a lot. And I've actually put a lot of the strategies in place where I've gone back to leaning them a lot on the lead side, having the club work more up and down, and not even worrying about it coming back up out of the ground, just having the club finish quite low. And, I've had some really, really cool case studies lately where I put some guys around 10 down, not put them there, they don't know what's going on. I'm just teaching them how to chip, right? They don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I've watched it and gone, fuck, I've got some real good success here. Where I'm going to say, maybe 2 years ago, I probably would have been teaching them the same way, which was shallow, use the bounce, rah, 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 which we all got kind of told that for a long time. So when I see the steep stuff and getting down on it, it's definitely, like you say, that if you got it put it in your kit bag, but I've done some really good stuff with some people who have like mentally in a bad place with chipping, with getting them real steep, which I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have done years ago.
I think that's a good point, and I've had a similar situation where I've taught people to chip a little bit steeper, and it is usually whenever they have something at the bottom, with like their hands or their arm, like they're like flinching at the ball, where I feel like it definitely works better to just kind of get them pivoting onto that lead side a little bit more, and then just kind of dumping, like not dumping it, but almost kind of what it feels like, just, slamming that club into the ball to get ball first contact, and then they don't really have a chance to react or try to like scoop the ball in the air or anything. So it definitely helps. Like I said, try it. You got to try it.
And I would say most recreational golfers who do book in a golf lesson, a chipping lesson, generally aren't chipping real good. So like someone will be like, they'll book a driving range golf lesson in, and they just got a bit of a fade going on and this and that. But if you see a short game lesson for a recreational golfer, I generally, in my cases, they're not in great shape because it costs a lot of money to get a golf lesson, and chipping, they're just like, and they come to me like, oh yeah, I see why you're here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, right?
How long has this been going on for?
And they bring just the wedge. I'm like, all right, what do we got going on here? It's like the short game is just awful.
We got the Elvis Presley legs going on, and they're just they're just nervous, and they're looking up at the guy at the other side of the green, making sure they're not going to hit him, and it's just like four. But anyways, let's do putting, right? So basically, one of the sponsors of the podcast is Back to Basics putting mirrors. Back to Basics putting mirrors, sponsors of the podcast. Been supporting us for a while. Designed by Richard Woodhouse and Grant Field, used by Cam Smith. Support those who support the podcast. This is their new one here. TM15, get your 15% off. Discount codes below. Lots of people are using it. Lots of people are purchasing it, because I know, because the emails come through. So thank you very much for supporting them, because they've keep supporting the podcast. So I'm stoked to see that. And in the Back to Basics putting segment here, John, do you have something for me, a putting tip that you can share with the listeners out there, or something they can put into their training? What have you got for us?
I love putting training aids, and so I'm glad you have the mirror there. I love to use a mirror. I love the template that shows a little bit of the arc and the face angle as you're coming through. So I love putting training aids and like working on your stroke. Okay, and I think that you can almost perfect the putting stroke. But when it comes to making more putts, I'm a big putt to the pitcher, as Tiger kind of said, and that was something that I've always kind of focused on too. And so the tip that I would like to give is a little bit, in my theme, how I like to say things.
Yes.
I would say, like, if you're putting, two drills that I really love. One, setting up to the ball. So let's say it's like a 15-footer. Setting up to the ball, looking at the line, taking everything in, closing your eyes, and hitting the putt. And it's like such a simple drill, but it forces you to be able to, it teaches you what you should be seeing even when your eyes are open. You should be feeling where the hole is at, like where it is in space, and trying to remember where it is. Your eyes are looking at the ball, and you're staying concentrated on making a good strike on the ball, but your mind's eye, or what you're thinking about, you should still have some connection to the apex or the target line, like however you kind of see putts going in a hole. Whether some people connect the dots, have a start point. Some people see curves. So, you should have something going on externally also when you're putting. And putting with your eyes closed kind of teaches you that feel from doing that over and over again. So it's a drill that I'd love to do. Second drill is just putting left hand and right hand only, to give you a little bit more awareness of maybe there's one hand in particular that just doesn't work good, or like breaks down or something, and you have a little bit more awareness of that. And when you can strike good putts with left hand and right hand only, you put both hands on the club, and they both have an idea how to be a little bit more stable and like move together.
Interesting that. And when you talk about the eyes closed, do you like the exercise there where you have the student or the player guess where the ball's finished?
Oh, yes, yes. I like that. And I also like to have them. So another one I'll do is I'll put them like 10, 15 feet away from the hole, have them spin around, like close their eyes and spin around, and then like find the hole, like walk into the hole and put their putter grip in the hole. I would say spinning around is a little bit more advanced. I'll start them like facing the hole and then tell them to close their eyes, walk up to the hole, put their putter in the hole. And it's always a laughable moment because they'll, simple.
Yeah. Have you seen a consistent pattern when someone does that exercise with the grip? Because I haven't done that since I was for 15 years, I reckon. But have you seen a consistent pattern to where people finish? Is it short, long, right, left?
Usually short, for sure. Because like when your eyes are closed, I think there's a little bit of like, I don't know. People will go conservative and they'll usually go a little short.
You think so? They don't want to bump into something. They don't want to keep walking. They don't want to walk past.
Like you're in a safe space. There's nothing around. Like nothing's going to trip you,
Yeah.
But
you know what, though? But that is typical of the golfer, right? Comes up short. The average golfer comes up short, right? Well, everyone does, sorry. Scott Force last week, everyone comes up short. And it's interesting because we always have fear of what's past the hole, right? So I'm not surprised that coming up short there is that one. And what was the second one you were talking about there again? You're talking about
left hand and right hand only putting.
I love that. You know what I heard the other day, John, about something, and someone said, I've got really good hand-eye. And the guy goes, yeah, but that's every other sport we're using one hand. Like talking about throwing a dart, throwing a baseball pitch or other types of exercises where we use one hand. He says it's the only time where you're saying you got hand up, but you got two connected. Not the only sport I should say, so because obviously you got baseball and other things like that as well. But it's very rare that you got the two connected, and hand eye doesn't actually come into play. Yeah. When you've got two, because it's not hand eye, it's hands eye. Does that make sense?
Yeah, hands eye. Yeah, that's a good point. And it's precision. Like it's usually, if it's precision, it's usually one hand, right? But power, like, baseball, you're trying to smash this ball. It's not exactly precision. Putting is like as precise as it gets, and you got to use two hands.
And when you see the dots there, right, just for me wanting to know as well, you mentioned there about when your eyes are closed and visually seeing something externally is the word you use there. Is there something that you personally, do you see connect the dots, curve? What do you see when you go to hit a putt?
I see a white line.
A white line?
White line. And you know where it came from? Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2004 on PlayStation. I swear. That's so crazy. I didn't play it. I played it a good amount, but I don't know, playing that video game and like seeing like like click R1 for Tiger line, and it would like show you the perfect line like into the hole. And it just it's just how I see putts now. When I visualize the ball going into the hole, I see a white line from the ball into the hole, and then I trace it right back to the ball again, and then I putt.
It's interesting because I come from a background of like surfing and skating and kind of spending a lot of time in the bowl, like of just kind of surfing the bowl where I grew up as a kid. So, and like riding motocross a lot as a kid. So I see slopes and stuff more as a, like I still skate now. Like I'm still the old dude that gets up to the skate park and has a bit of muck around, but I don't see the actual line. And the same thing with my putting is I see the curvature and I can feel it more than I can and I can see it. I don't see a white line, but because you spend a lot of time looking at it, right, and seeing the ball fall away. But I always, it just kind of brings me back to like surfing, skating. So I kind of see that. And I know some people
environment a lot more in those situations because you could like severely hurt yourself. You become like hyper aware and can see those, like you have to be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of see like the first bit, the second bit, you might see a couple of different sections. So anyways, that's kind of how I look at it. But there's some cool stuff there. I love the closed eye stuff with that, with kids and stuff and running junior clinics with, other coaches of mine around me doing that. So that technique, just kind of close your eyes and turn your putt around, try and get the thing in the hole, and give them a prize for getting it. But that brings us to the end of the Back to Basics putting segment. Support those who support the podcast. TM15 for 15% off, the best putting mirror in the world. Designed by Grant Field and Richard Woodhouse. Grant Field's told me he's going to get Ken Smith on for me one day. Haven't you, Grant? But all right, so I want to move into now. We've kind of gone from swing stuff, practice stuff, some short game stuff. Really enjoying this conversation. Let's talk about the art of putting, right? And I think this is a very interesting topic. You know, what you've got written here, right, is the art of putting versus the science of putting, right? Mm-hmm. Can you kind of break that down for us a little bit in what you mean with that?
Yeah, I would say that the art of putting is being... like, I don't want to say hyper aware, but like being very aware of the situation. You're reading your line. You can see, pitch marks, leaves, where the wind is blowing. You just have a little bit more acute awareness of kind of what's going on, to a sense of like if you're riding a wave or you're riding a dirt bike, like you have to be hyper aware because it's almost life or death. Right. Yep. And obviously, you don't have that in putting, but you can have a very keen awareness of like what's going on and be able to, kind of use that environment to your advantage and just kind of understand what's going on. And so I just feel like that's how you make a lot of putts. Science of putting is, going into the technique, the putting stroke, skid roll distance, launch angle, the spin of the ball, and being able to optimize and perfect the putting stroke. And there's a lot of putters and companies that focus solely on, getting the best roll and having everything, having less variables, like taking out variables and stuff like that to like optimize and make things a little bit more simple. So it just have you
noticed that Bryson's kind of come back a little bit more into the art of the game a little bit? Have you heard some of the interviews and stuff that he's had?
Yeah, big time. I mean, he, especially with his new YouTube channel and all the like more content that he's putting out. I think that he got the rep as, like the science guy. And of course he is very scientific, but he always said like, I'm scientific so I can feel more accurately. Like I'm a feel player. And I just want to know all the data and everything I can so that I can feel as accurate as I can.
Interesting. Because a lot of the conversations with him and, we're all like, golf is life, right? For these guys, right? It's their life, it's their career, and they're also growing up. Like Bryson come from playing the Masters and Amateur twice, I think, in college and toying with the idea of maybe not even turning professional. Like, a very unique guy who's been in the public eye his whole life. So you're allowed to go through changes, right? Because we're all growing up together and they're just doing it more in the public eye. Like I've grown a lot in the last 7 years, compared to what I was 7 years before that, whatever. So he's, he's having a change of opinions. But I just noticed that his language has changed a little bit. I was kind of watching a few interviews with him at the Masters and how he's taking a step back from trying to really control the variables and getting back in touch with the art side of the game of golf. Did you pick up on that as well?
I can definitely see that too. And I just feel like anybody who's played this game for a while is evident and like just eventually going to get to that point because there's just too many variables and like you'll drive yourself mad trying to like control everything. Like in this game, having control is giving up control.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? So like that's where you're going to that's where you're going to play a little bit better is like whenever you can move with the flow of the game and like you don't try to force things. So like, the longer you play, I think anybody who's had over 20 years of experience in playing this game has been through some shit. So, they're just like, hey, it gives and it takes, and you just kind of understand how it goes up and down, and you kind of play with that. So I think that's where Bryson, he's getting there. He's there.
I get it. I see it because he obviously had a few interviews right after shooting 7 red in the first round of the Masters. So it was interesting kind of, listening to him talk and share. And I kind of felt really good for him. He felt like he seems like he's at a good place and an understanding of where he's at. And, yeah, it seemed really good. It's good to kind of hear, and I think the world has been such a better place for having Bryson in it because we've learnt so much even from him.
Hmm.
And without going into too much crazy stuff, because I don't know the complete details of it, but I've got, actually, I won't say too many names because it might bring them into something, but I've got students of mine from Germany, right, who
Uh-huh.
in grandparents are in a formula background, who are involved with club making. I'll probably just leave it there. And they've done a lot of
Oh,
testing, though, around golf balls, right? And
uh-huh.
the golf balls that they've done, and I've seen the video footage of them rolling these down these absolute zero tables, right? I was talking
Hmm.
to a caddy about this, Nick Pugh, Lucas caddy last week, and they've showed me balls going offline, like perfect balls, and they've never had three balls out of the same sleeve do the same thing. Like,
Wow.
like even that kind of variable of we saw Bryson floating the golf balls, right?
Hmm.
And mate, Nick was even talking about this Lucas's caddy last week. Of people who have listened, I'm sure a lot of people did listen to it. He was talking about this, John. Right? He sets up a putting station for Lucas, right, which is super tight. Like you get the tees through it. It's like brrr, like we wouldn't be able to do it because Lucas's putting is one of the best putters in the world, right?
Hmm.
And he sets this thing up and it's dead straight. And 20 minutes later, Lucas comes over and has a go at it. And he's like, why are they all going to the right hand side? Well, the sun had moved. So the sun was coming up in Vegas, I think it was he was saying. It was coming up.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Uh-huh.
paraphrasing it, but go listen to the latest podcast, people listening. And it moved the grass to follow the sun, which moved the line of the putt
Hmm.
in 20 minutes. I was like,
So,
man, it's crazy.
you know the clip of Phil Mickelson talking about, like all the variables that go on the golf course. He was like, oh, well, when there's dew, 5% this, and he was going through this like
Mm,
spiel of like different situations,
mm,
and it was taken, different ways by different people. But I'm like
yeah,
listening to it, like, oh yeah, 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 that's it. That's all that. That's the good stuff. Like that's what I mean
yeah,
about being like that hyper aware and just kind of knowing those situations and like um, the more you pay attention to it, the better and the quicker it processes. And I think that it's
yeah,
just such a good skill for a player to have. Like when you first start out, it can seem cumbersome, to have to go through like all of these different like checkpoints. But um,
yeah,
I think that a lot of people would benefit from just having a tour caddy or like talking to a caddy
mm,
who has a lot of knowledge in the game. I think a lot of people need that a little bit more
mm,
um, than even maybe a swing coach, depending on where they are in their development. Like if you're a great player, if you've been grinding on your game and you're down to a single digit handicap and your swing is pretty solid and you keep chasing more swing, I don't know if that's the answer for you.
yeah.
It could
Well,
be
mm,
different strategy. It could be different things.
there's so much to learn, so much to learn. Tell me about lad putters. Have you had a go at lad putters? Have you been down that avenue yet?
Yeah, yeah. I went down the. I didn't purchase one. I've borrowed one. I've used one. I swung one. I've talked to everybody who has one. I give them a small interview, basically, trying to see what they feel
Yes.
about it. And some people rave about them. Some people have them in the corner of their garage already. And I've kind of gotten mixed reviews from them. And so
They've been
I'll say
very
it this way.
outspoken.
Yeah, very. I mean, honestly, like I love the founder. I love what he has to say. When you swing it, you can feel the no torque. Like it feels great, honestly.
Mm,
But for me, and with many other people I've talked to, other like pros and stuff, they just felt like they rolled the ball really well, but just like weren't making anything. And
mm,
I think that when it comes to like belly putters, broomsticks, big grips, big putters, no torque, like when there's a lot of things that take out a lot of these variables, you sometimes clash with the art of golf a little bit. And you just kind of get locked into like this stroke where, sometimes I can't tell you how many times I've hit the ball off the heel, and dropped the putt. You know what I mean? And so I just think you make really good putting strokes and everything, but it doesn't always guarantee that you're going to make the putt. So I think some
I could
people have gone
imagine
back to their skinny grip Scotty, you know?
I can imagine from what I've seen from the founder or whoever he is of Lab Putters that just pops up on my feed sometimes.
Hmm.
If he'd heard what you just said, he'd be jumping down your throat.
I
I
know,
think.
I know, I know. Hey
I'm not
man,
saying I
players are weird. It's not all science, and so that's just where it's at.
yeah, no,
You
and I
know,
think the
feel
term
the feel.
art of putting and fizz is a big thing, right? Like it's a big thing that we all talk about. I didn't have my feel today. No one says. People say, oh, I might have lost my stroke, but you don't. You know, they don't. They generally will come back to I lost my feel today on the greens.
Yeah, yeah. Your speed is off. Like the speed is different from your home course, so yeah, you can't hit your lines because you're hitting the ball way too hard or soft.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
let's get into some of my little takeaway questions here that I've got at the end here. Hey,
Mhm.
I don't know if you completely answered my question. What was your favorite takeaway food in Korea?
I'm gonna have to go with it's a company called Product Chicken, and it's a fried chicken place. They do like different sauces and seasonings, but it's a play on words like Prada, you know, like the luxury brand Prada,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's called Product. So it's like it sounds kind of the
Ah.
same, but dok is chicken in Korean language, so it's like
Yeah.
Product, and it's delicious. It
Ah.
comes in like a black. It comes in a. It looks like a luxury purse whenever you get it. Even like the bag that it's delivered in and everything is like a really nice drawstring bag, and it comes in a black box with a like a gold logo on it, and it's
No way.
delicious.
How
Yeah,
many
it's my
pieces of
favorite.
chicken are you going at a time? How many fried pieces are you going?
So you can get like boneless or bone in, and
Yeah.
they have different sizes. It's all like variety is such a big thing there. So you can get smaller portions and like like six different sauces and stuff like that. It's really common. Even pizza, you can order a pizza with like one single pizza with like eight different toppings. Like each slice has like different toppings.
Is it expensive over there?
Food in general, like if you eat traditional Korean food, it's not that expensive. You can feed yourself really well. But all of the fancier, popular, trending foods, yeah, you'll
Yeah.
pay. You'll pay for
You'll
sure.
pay.
It's on the higher side. You can find both.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. All right. Tell me the best advice you've ever received.
Best advice I ever received, and this is in relative to golf terms. I have an older brother who doesn't play golf at all.
Yes.
He did action sports, race BMX, snowboards, like all the kind of hardcore sports. And so for him, diving in and jumping into something is like no problem. He knows to just be fully confident and go through that. And I was telling him when I was playing, trying to make it on tour, that I was struggling. Like I'd always have this one hole that I didn't like the tee shot, and like it would like mess up my round and make a double by hitting one ball OB like every round. And his advice to me in very old brother terms was like, stop being a little
No bitch. He's very
a
well.
little sissy, yeah.
Yeah.
Stop being a little bitch, basically, is what he
Yeah.
told me, and it was hilarious. And so, the next time I went out and played, I swung harder on that hole that was a little bit tighter, and like I was nervous, and that little mind shift helped me so much. And like no longer was I
Mm.
losing that one ball every round out of play, and I started to keep the ball in play. And that's a big difference, to shoot one over or two under, or, you know what I mean? Like that's a big
Yeah.
deal. So it
And
was funny advice, but it came at such a good time for me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's nice, big old brother, giving that, but it's also kind of putting things into context, right? People listening. Like I
Hmm.
heard something the other day, and I did a bit of research into it. I was listening to a podcast myself, which is a bit too deep, right? But talking about the blue
Hmm.
dot theory of the photo that NASA took,
Hmm.
which is something like, I'm completely paraphrasing here. I'm going to something like, hundreds of billions of light or hundreds of millions of light years away, or whatever this photo was taken, right? And it just shows you the size and context of how big the world is, right? Planet Earth. And planet Earth is
Hmm.
like this. It's called the blue dot. It's like a grain of sand on this photo. You can barely see it. And
Uh-huh.
in there, someone is living in there, billions and billions of people, but someone in there is worried about a golf shot on one of the holes.
Yeah.
It's like, man, what's the
Yep.
point? Like,
No. What
nothing's,
is the point? Yeah. Are you serious? Yeah.
and
But
it's like, you
our
can
whole
even go,
world could be in this one shot, though.
yeah, and you can even go as far as like people say, "Oh, my purpose on life is this." I'm like, "Oh man, I don't think life should be. I think we're taking life too seriously." You know what I mean? We're
Absolutely.
taking a
I
golf
do.
shot too seriously that we're struggling over, and
It's a
man, I get
game.
it.
I
I
tell
get it.
people all the time, it's a game. And like, games are meant to
Mm,
frustrate you and like, bring you up
mm,
and put you down. And so like it's very much a
mm.
game. It's a game of golf.
All right, tell me, do you have an embarrassing thing that's happened to you? The most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you, on or off the golf course?
Yeah, I would say it's embarrassing and unfortunate. I played in college. I was playing in a tournament. It was the Montgomery City Championship. And big event. This was the first time I went to Alabama State. It's a smaller HBCU school, historically black college. And
Yeah.
this is the first time I got a chance to play against like University of Alabama and Auburn players because, they're like right there. And so some of the best names that I've known, in college golf were like there at that tournament. So I was pumped up. Like I wanted to compete and put
Mm.
myself, in that hat with them. And I played the tournament, finished the last round, and finished tied for fourth. And when they
Nice.
went to write my score up on the scoreboard, I realized that they wrote the wrong score. I was one shot less, and I didn't check my scorecard, and I disqualified myself. I had to call myself on it.
Oh,
Yeah. So
oh
like,
no.
yeah, and like everybody was like congratulating me, and like like it was already kind of
Oh.
like a done deal, and I seen it, and I just knew that I would not like be able to go on. Like there was
So,
no
so
way I
it
can.
was one shot less on this on the scoreboard than what you actually had.
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
and
the
then
other
I
way
went
around, you're
back
still
and I'm like,
okay.
yeah, I went to the tournament director and I'm like, I think there's a problem. Can I see my scorecard? And then I realized like the last hole I made a bogeyed and the guy wrote par. I mean, and I signed it. Like I wrote, I don't know why I didn't see it, but I just kind of like skimmed over it. And that was the first time I ever had like that scorecard mistake happen to me. So now I'm like
Yeah.
counting each one, but it was like the biggest event, and I just couldn't believe that happened to me. It was pretty embarrassing to have to. At least the tournament director was really nice about it, and he was, like giving me like praise for like calling it out and like not letting it slide and everything. But I was kind of put on
Yeah.
the spot. It was pretty embarrassing to make that
There's
mistake.
so many there's actually processes in place now which I think it's hard for that to happen in tournaments
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Like they don't let you leave the room until they've like the director's gotten the card and they talk to you about it and says this your score. Like I think it's really hard. You can even hand the wrong scorecard in and still be in the room, and they'll go
yeah,
through it.
yeah.
Yeah, and
No, this was a lot quicker of a process, and yeah, just totally fudged that up. That one still haunts me to this day.
hey, it's giving you a good story though. Hey, tell me, two more to finish off the podcast. A big sliding door moment in your life. Is there a moment in time where something happened, crossed paths with you that's kind of led you down the direction you are, or something that you miss
Yeah,
on?
absolutely, absolutely. I would say, as far as my career goes, I was working at the like outside services at the golf course. It was Orange County National, and
Yeah.
it's a huge facility. And on the other side of the driving range was a golf academy, and Sean Foley was the director of instruction there. And
Yes.
so Sean used to come up and, I'm working, got a caddy bib on, I'm cleaning carts, cleaning clubs and stuff like that. So Sean would come up and talk to me. He was always really nice to me. And after meeting him a couple times and exchanging words with him, he invited me to come down to the academy. And like, he was like, I heard you're a good player. Like other people were telling me, like, you really, enjoy the game and everything. Like, you ever thought about coaching? Is this something you ever, consider? And I was like, I'm honestly, no. Like, I never really wanted to be a coach. I had this stigma in my head that, like, those who can't play coach kind of thing. Like, I've heard people say that. So I was like, I know I'm a player. I'm no coach. And so I had that in my head, and I kind of blocked the other opportunities. But this was Sean, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna take this, and went down to the academy, shadowed some coaches for the day, and just like, for me, it was like the best happy medium where I got paid, and I was still so close to the game, that I was like really passionate about.
Mm.
And at that point,
What did you?
I had already kind of. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I had already kind of quit playing. I'd kind of got to that breaking point where I ran out of money, and like things weren't going well. So I quit professional golf, and I was looking for other avenues, like what am I going to do with my life, And so I just kind of found myself working at the golf course because it was comfortable. Like I know golf, and I always like being around golf, so I was just working there, and yeah. But I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like looking into heavy equipment operators and like considering going into the armed forces still because I wasn't over 26. So it just came at a great time, and then I had a purpose, and I just kind of kept going with that ever since that day. I got the job.
What year was that with Foles?
That was 2013.
Oh, okay. So this it's not far from Tiger. Was he? When was he coaching Tiger?
This was, I think it might have been right after Tiger, because Tiger wasn't there, but Rose, I seen Justin Rose, Hunter Mahan was at the academy a couple times. And so, that was my first coaching job was with Foley at the Core Golf Academy.
And was Foley like just still the ultimate professional back then? Was he still like dressing to the tens, making sure it was in good order?
Foley has been Foley ever since I've ever known him. He is just the smoothest dude. He can talk to you about anything. Rap, hip hop, politics, flow of life. Like, I mean, it can go deep, Yeah. He was like, he would talk to me, and like, I just started the academy. I was basically setting up the range, breaking down the range, sweeping the rooms. Like, it was a very entry level position. But on my golf side, I was doing playing lessons with the kids. I wasn't even like teaching technical swing yet. Yeah. So he would come in and he would start talking to me, and I loved listening to the stories he was telling and everything. But it would be like 25 minutes, and I'm like, I'm going to get in trouble. Like, you're going to get me in trouble, Sean. I got to go. Like, I'm supposed to be sweeping this room up. I got like duties, but I couldn't, I loved it. I really enjoyed my time there. And I love Sean.
I think one of Foley's biggest, obviously he's done some incredible stuff. Like, obviously had the opportunity to coach Tiger, coach Justin Rose. I'm pretty sure I think he was with him when he won the US Open. Like, he's, done some amazing stuff with Hunter Mahan, obviously. But I think the biggest thing that he did was, what I can see from the outside looking in, at his career, was what he did with Lydia Ko, and how he just took her from, how she just kind of got to a rock bottom. She was like number one in the world when she was 17, and then slipped all the way down to 100, which we don't need to go into too much detail about to why and who she was with. And then Foley gets her when she's over 100th in the world, and takes her all the way back to number one momentarily. And then she went back to number two and left. But I thought that was incredible in what he did there. A really, really cool case study to see, right?
Yeah. And it's like, it's crazy to like I said, without going into detail to even what he did, but it was like a re-education of like life and perspective, I think, that ultimately helped her. And like, you listen to her talk, and she is so smart, and like she's so aware, so keen, and I think that Foley helped her explore, or even like open her mind a little bit more, maybe to like that side of things. And I think that was a big part of it. I always tell people like the biggest thing that I took from Foley, from working with him, was just like how he talked to people. He's always so good at like, could give a golf lesson to a 6-year-old, and then to a tour pro, and then to a 65-year-old, like, 30 handicap, and be able to like speak the language that they understand. His communication skills were so good. So I always kind of tried to take that approach too, like be able to communicate, like never talk over anybody's head, talk to the person that you're teaching, and make sure that they can understand as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that.
Hmm.
And he does a very good job too of not. I think he stays incredibly humble. He shared a story of
Hmm.
when he was just walking his dog past this golf course and saw this old lady struggling with a chipping, and just went something like along the lines. I'm paraphrasing here, but then went and gave her a chipping lesson. Spent 45 minutes with her for nothing,
Hmm.
and didn't
Hmm.
once tell her who he was. Um,
Hmm.
that he was coaching Tiger at the time. Nothing. Just helped her with the chipping and just went on walking her dog.
Yep.
And
Yep.
this old lady's got no idea who just helped her. You know what I mean? Just could have been anyone. Could have been John the
Yeah.
26
It's like
handicapper. Who knows?
this
Yeah.
supremely nicely dressed man came and helped me with my chipping today.
Yeah. She had no idea. And he probably had a meeting with Tiger Woods that afternoon. Um,
Yep.
all right. Last question. If you could be any athlete in the world, I want a golf one and a non-golf athlete. Who would that
Hmm.
be?
Um, Golf athlete. I mean, can I go back in time a little bit? It's gonna be Tiger. Like that's all I can really think about.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's not use Tiger.
Okay, okay. In present day, I mean, yeah. I mean, Scotty. It's got to be Scotty. The dude is playing hot. He's just in such a good time. He's in such a good mindset,
Mm,
and his life seems so peaceful with how
mm,
he's handling all these situations. Like he keeps dominating, but I don't think he cares that he's
mm.
dominating. He's just kind of like in his process and things just going well. I would love to have that type of balance in my life and achievement. Like how you have balance and achievement,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you can go back to, people who are high achievers sometimes have gone through like 6 marriages and like, like their personal life might be turmoil. And a lot of times
Yeah.
that happens whenever you dive so deeply into whatever you're passionate about. So
Yeah.
I
I
think
like that.
Scotty is a great role model for that.
It's a good way of looking at it
Non
because I
golf.
would I would like to see what it feels like to hit an iron shot like Scotty does because he just doesn't miss. But I'd
Yeah.
also like to feel like to be in Rory's driver. I'd love to be Rory's
Yeah,
hands when he hits the driver.
yeah, that's true. I want to feel what all that balance and power feels like, just ripping through it and just yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great.
But before you tell me the next one, we're recording this here after Tiger. Sorry, Scotty just won the Masters. Then he just won the last week one. I can't remember. I don't know what it was called. One straight to one directly after.
Hmm.
I think he's the hottest thing since Tiger.
Yeah.
Like people, I think people just when I'm saying that, I think sometimes they're just kind of like, oh, here goes Toby again talking about Scotty, but
Hmm.
he's just doing stuff that only Tiger did. Like
Yep.
like when he won the Masters, everyone went backwards, he went forward, and
Yeah.
then the next week he comes out, sees the golf course for 9 holes and wins. Like
Yeah.
no one else in the world since Tiger has done that on a
Hmm.
consistent basis that he's been doing it. Like if you look at his world golf ranking, if you've got nothing to do, just type in OWGR Scotty Scheffler, and literally it's just all single digits. There's no such thing as it's like 1, 2, T3, T4, 1,
Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's like,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah. No,
don't
the
you
dude is
reckon?
playing. He's playing golf and he's obviously not caught up in his swing too much. He works on, he talks about working on his grip, like that's it.
Mm,
And so, yeah, things are so simple, and he's just highly in tune to the game. And I would say he's highly external focused on the shots that he wants to hit, the shot shapes, and seeing different windows. Seen the video of hitting a 5 iron like 3 different ways. Like he has that ability to like play shots and like hit different shots. So I think that yeah, that's his skill, and he's never
and
really gotten in his own way with trying to go so deep into technique.
and I get it. He's won 2 Masters, and we've had Rory, we've had Dustin Johnson, we've had these guys who have won multiple amounts. But it just feels like Scotty's done this over such a short time. And like I felt like watching Rory, he might, when he went really well for a while, like he hasn't won a major for over 12 years or something. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like which is
It's been a
crazy to think. You
while.
would never
I
think in
know.
the world that you would ever say that, right? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it just seems like he's just doing stuff. It's just to me, is just this such a form of dominance. It's just blowing my mind. It's blowing my mind. It really is.
I
It's
know,
blowing my
and
mind
I
watching
think
him
his
play.
superpower is his mentality and how
Mm,
like this is like just not getting to him. Like whenever somebody else goes hot, I'm always like, okay, yeah, okay, two tournaments in a row, three, okay, they're hot. Like at some point, the sponsors are going to catch up, the extra money, the obligations, like they
mm,
catch up, and your lifestyle starts to change, and you just kind of fall out of that flow. It's so natural for that to
mm,
happen, and it happens like that for everybody, but.
mm.
With Tiger, he was on the other side of it where he was just so highly focused on like his craft and dominating, that he just kind of kept going through it and being the best. Scotty
Yeah,
on the other side is just so, golf is what I do, not who I am on
yeah,
the other side of it. And so it's just like not affecting him. And he's still just
yeah.
living his daily life. And I just think it'll continue.
And for the people that will jump into my DMs, I haven't touched on it. Obviously, Nelly Corder, what she's doing on the LPGA is just freakish. She probably is the best golfer in the
Yes.
world right now, right?
Yeah.
So you can.
Yeah.
So I mentioned her. So don't jump into everyone.
Yeah, gotta mention Nelly. I've been talking about her too in my lessons and stuff. So it's awesome.
Freakish, considering
Yeah.
she's all my swing models. All right. So non-golfer. Last question. The non-golfer in the world. Who would it be?
I mean, I looked up to basketball as my first love. I looked up to MJ, since I was a
Interesting.
kid. Still love Jordan shoes. Like, I'm a Jordan fanboy.
Yeah.
So,
Michael Jordan.
yeah, just gotta be
Best ever.
MJ. It's one of my all favorites. Yeah, for sure.
He is.
Oh yeah.
Is there a competition between him and LeBron, or is it just is it a standout?
I think that comparing, it's a tough comparison. I know the game has changed and things are a little bit different. I think that LeBron James is obviously awesome, but I don't know. I just like MJ's mentality a little bit better. I like his approach, and so statistically, they can be close and everything, but MJ's got more championship rings and everything. So I still think that
Yeah.
MJ is
Yeah,
better.
I get it.
Yeah.
I loved the Netflix documentary. I loved it.
So
Absolutely.
good.
It's
Yeah,
the best
that
thing
was so
ever.
good.
The Last Dance. I love it. And yeah. Anyways, all the stuff that comes with it, with being MJ, yeah, I really loved it. I really got to learn a lot about him, which was great. And because it was before my time. And obviously living here in Australia, my father would make me get up in the morning or whatever to watch it. But back in the day. But yeah, it was really great to learn that. But hey, John. It's been great to learn about you. It's been great to learn about the way you teach and you sharing your knowledge with us. And people can catch you, right? I'll put all the links down below to get your social media. And
Yep.
you're running on Skillest, right? You're still doing subscriptions and online lessons.
Absolutely.
Great. And you got
Loving
room
it.
for you do unlimited online lesson plans? Is that what you do?
I do. I have the unlimited. I have 3-lesson package, single lesson. I even running a new student assessment right now. So like new student assessments, only $50. Send me your swing, and kind of get a chance to know each other a little bit more, if we want to work together or not.
Hey, hey, do you have on your profile that you can talk Korean?
I cannot speak Korean. I can like a little bit. I am not conversing in Korean.
Mate, we appreciate you coming on the Golf Coach podcast, mate. It's been great. Thanks, John.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Toby.